Just thought I'd go out and get a walk. It's been windy again, mad weather still. Not too bad though, it's warm enough. Just a disclaimer for this video. It's going to sound a little flat earther, tinfoil hat type, but bear with me. I'm not Alex Jones, trust me. When stuff that he says starts sounding kind of true, you're like, fucking hell. No, some of it, maybe, there might be some truth to it, but I was watching that thing that he did with Sandy Hook and I thought, to put those parents under as much duress as he did, that's just fucking sinful, isn't it? I don't think he ever should have been brought on trial. I think he's mentally ill or something, or I genuinely believe he thinks he's telling the truth. He doesn't know what the truth is. And in America, everything's so mad, you wouldn't know. Someone please explain to me now, and this isn't like, I had a lot of really nice Americans, I just want to say, but how on earth is it the greatest country in the world? Like, looking at it, the homelessness, the drug problems, all the shit and the food that you guys eat. It's not your fault, but your own government poison you, all the greed and corruption. Certainly don't think it's the greatest country in the world. I think that's a very arrogant statement to make. What country is the greatest? I don't think there's anyone that you could say. I think we've all got our problems. And if you keep saying it's the greatest country in the world, I guess people will start to believe you, won't they? What I'm talking about today is, should we question big pharmaceutical companies, and are a lot of these outbreaks and diseases curable? They're just not giving us the cure. I understand how that sounds, I realise that, but every so often I think about it and I'm just kind of like looking at my brother. And Ireland is only small, like, compared to the US, and we've seen the human rights violations in the US with the opioid epidemic. And I think the Sacklers are one of the most evil families I've ever seen. I think they're worse than any drug dealer I've ever seen, because as scummy as drug dealers are in the streets, that's the only life they know. They were brought up in that. You know, the Sacklers weren't. They were just purely out for their own pockets, you know. Greed, corruption. Get this drug to the market. It's not that addictive, you can't get addicted, you know. It's pseudo-addiction. Will pay off doctors and scientists to say what we want. The FDA as well. They hired people from the FDA to work for them, so they could say everything is fine, you know. They could tell them basically how to cheat the system, which is disgraceful. They're pure fucking evil, if you ask me. The flies are back. Must mean the air is getting warmer. Doesn't feel it. Come on, boy. Like, you saw how much contempt America has for the working man, especially in places like West Virginia, where OxyContin just went wild, swept the land like locusts in the desert, you know. Disgraceful stuff. Stay in, good boy, good lad. Purdue Pharma are one of the most corrupt organisations I've ever seen. That's the Sacklers company, FYI. And they couldn't care less. When they're interviewed about it, it's just, oh, we didn't know, it's not that addictive. They maintained their lie all the time, when it was found to be more addictive than heroin. Just a shout out before I forget, if you want a good video on that, check out Soft White Underbelly, Ron Piana. Ron Piana, not to be confused with Rich Piana. I think Ron was a boxer. He wrote articles on medicine and cancer treatments. Now, cancer is something I think touches everyone. It really does, you know. But this is a difficult topic. You just have to think about this for a second. How many people, and bear with me, it's going to sound very conspiracy theory, I know. How many of us come together to treat cancer and think, let's run a marathon, let's do something good. You know, you see Stand Up to Cancer, you see all these great organisations which are brilliant, and we all are like genuinely on the same page. Cancer's arse, fuck cancer, all this stuff. Of course, because it's a bastard, you know, and you just see the way it takes over, you know, malignant cells metastasising, which means the spread, and then you get benign cells. We were touching on it before in my course, you know, like all the aggressive treatments that they use just to target the cell and stop it metastasising, the cancer cells, depending on what kind you have as well. They've made huge advances in treating prostate cancer, so I mean, there is definitely advances there. But you have to wonder, I always wonder, was there a cure? And they're just not telling us because it makes so much money. Al, if you can't cross over, I have to tell you this so many times. Good boy, come on. You can cross over now. Come on, good lad. Come on, good boy. Really me sick, you know. He smells something and he has inner bloodhound. You know, bloodhounds just go for something, they smell it. Not viciously, like they're pleasant dogs, but when they're on the trail. Oh, I always got thinking though, because cancer is such a fucking evil thing. Like, I worked in a company, and I'm not going to ever mention companies because I get my arse sued. Not my arse particularly, I don't know why I said that, but I always found it ironic that we make cancer drugs, yet we do night shifts which are carcinogenic. You know, and loads of people do it, and they do it for years. 20 plus years of night shift, which is proven to be carcinogenic, cancer causing, that is, for anyone who doesn't know. Doesn't that seem a bit counterproductive? Like, when you think about it, the whole objective of the company is to cure cancer, or is it? Because when you think about it, if pharmaceutical companies cure diseases and cure it, you know, forever, they're not making any money. It's a business. These companies make profits off people suffering. Whether you want to admit it or not, they do. Isn't the type of video I normally make? I'm very conscious that it can get very, you know, the vaccines cause autism and all that sort of thing. I can confirm I had it long before I was vaccinated. I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe there's microchips in the COVID vaccines. Not at all. I can confirm that for sure. Don't think Bill Gates is reading our minds using the microchips anyway, although you have to admit now, when you think something up, we get very hairy now, this conversation, because when I think stuff up, or do I even say it without even knowing, it's like if something is on my mind, it always comes up in my Google search and I'm going like, ooh. No, shut that thought off now. But it's usually a popular topic, so it's trending, do you know what I mean? It makes sense, so let's cut that off now. But when you look at COVID, the virus started just a stone's throw away from the lab where they were known to be making viruses. They make them so that they can prepare the vaccine for them. You know what they say? If you make the illness, you can make the cure. And people, like a lot of very wealthy people, got even wealthier. They made billions off PPE. The British government were implicated in that, you know. They had shares in PPE companies in China. They made an absolute fucking fortune off it, and it was shit. It was brutal. It ripped, you know. And here's what always gets me. So there's a woman whose name I can't remember, but they call her Bat Lady. She is a top scientist in China, in Biosafety Level 4 Laboratories, and we did it before in college where we were doing the different biosafety levels, and it's fascinating, you know. It's the big spacesuits that they wear. I thought it was really interesting, and I have an obsession with it because I just think, how do they not break it before they go in? How are they not so anxious? I wouldn't be able to breathe, and I think it fills up with air for like 10 minutes after you disconnect your hose. I was looking it up. I am absolutely fascinated. I think science is brilliant. I think religion is something as well. I think, why do they always have to work together? Why don't they work together, you know? I'm getting too excited talking about this. I just think it's fascinating. But Bat Lady, we'll call her, is a genius. She's the top of her field, and she complained about the procedures in the lab, saying procedures weren't being followed, and you have to follow so much protocol. You have to wear 3 layers of gloves. It doesn't sound like my cup of tea because I'm a big fella. I don't think they'd have a suit to fit me. I worked in a clean room and that was difficult enough, but I followed every procedure because the way I see it, I'd rather not injure myself. Like, you're using very dangerous chemicals. Why? Because you're using very dangerous pathogens. Thing is, it's negative pressure in the environment, and your suit is filled with positive pressure, meaning that if the suit tears, the air goes out of the suit, so the airborne pathogen can't get into your suit. Do you know what I mean? And there's no air at all in the lab itself. The door is airlocked, so nothing gets in. You've got like big submarine doors as well. One typically open, then they seal that, then they open another, then they seal that, so nothing can get in. So very unlikely that you can make a mistake that big. Someone driving on the phone couldn't wave even if they wanted to. But I think it's very unlikely that you don't knowingly take something out of that lab, unless your lab practices are woeful in Wuhan. Like, Bat Lady was top of her field. She called it out when she saw. She was very strict. I mean, you deal with some of these real sciencey types, and I am to a degree. I believe in following procedure because it's protecting you at the end of the day. You know, you can say, oh, this gobshite. I saw people not following procedure, not wearing any layers of gloves when, you know, using extremely dangerous chemicals. It was like, you are going to seriously injure yourself, you know. We were using really hot water, boiling water. At times, it had to be cooled down. It was brought just before evaporation and then cooled down to sanitize it. And you had to wear special thermal gloves to be safe, you know. It's protecting you, so look, I get it. I've no problem with that whatsoever, even if some people do seem strict. They're the ones that'll keep you safe. They're the ones that'll protect you at the end of the day. So, no issue with that. But Bat Lady all of a sudden disappears. How fucking convenient. And anyone that was calling BS out on the whole thing, starting in a cave, miles inland, you know, because that's where bats live. They don't live near us on the street, they live in the forest in a fucking cave. I always, if I ever am going, oh yeah, where do bats live? You know, it helps me remember it. I'm always quoting David Koechner. You know, whammy, the chicken of the cave. Anchorman is brilliant. I love David Koechner. He was Tallahassee in Anchorman. Whammy, whammy. I love whammy. And then Bats, the chicken of the cave. Funny guy. Big fella as well. I thought he was hilarious. That helps me remember, but it seems a lot more likely that in a lab where they're making these viruses, it's going to get out. And it doesn't sound that unreasonable, you know. Just a thought, you know, without the tinfoil hat. Because I do understand, but you have to think about it. These companies like Pfizer, AstraZeneca, for that vaccine, they made billions. And I was very fortunate, as was my family. None of us got seriously ill from it. Thank God. We didn't appreciate at first how lucky we were. I wasn't really scared. My mum was, because she's immunocompromised. And there's a lot of fear mongering. A lot of people were terrified. Really terrified. But like me and my brother going into shops, we wore gloves. I still sanitise my hands whenever I go into a shop. If ever there's a good tip for you, just for good hand hygiene. If you're ever going in and there's a hand sanitising station, just use it. You know, it's free. What will it cost you to sanitise your hands? You see doctors sometimes not even wearing gloves and not sanitising their hands. You would assume they have good hand hygiene, but they don't always. And if you're ever dealing with a doctor that's not washing their hands, tell them. Say, I'd like you to wash your hands, please. Nothing wrong with that, you're allowed. You're encouraged to. Don't be afraid. Don't have them handling your parts with manky hands. Say it. You know? Unfortunately, you have to correct a lot of doctors nowadays. And don't be afraid to do it. I know it's daunting, trust me, but do it. Nah, it just sickens me. Like, look at Ron Piana. Ron Piana was talking about hydrogen peroxide, applying it to the site where there's cancer cells. Now, he writes a really good article, and I can't remember all of it, but he knows his shit. You know, he's not from a scientific background, but he's a very good intellectual mind. And I certainly think he's my kind of guy. I think he's honest, I think he's upfront. Ron Piana is your guy. That's, well, you know how to spell Ron, R-O-N, and then P-I-A-N-A, if you want to look him up. More versed on the subject than me. And look, I know it sounds a bit mad, you're kind of like, what's the point in all this, but it's just to question things and question people in charge, you know. Just because people are in charge and have a fancy suit and all doesn't mean that they're good people. You know, how many people, you know, masquerading behind lab coats and business suits caused that opioid epidemic? You go in with a toothache and you're prescribed a seriously addictive opioid. It's oxycodone, but with continuous release, basically meaning that you get the high for longer, right? So over a longer period of time, but you get a kick-ass fucking high. They made it addictive, so you'll be coming back. They paid off doctors to prescribe it. In America, like, them and New Zealand are the only two countries where you're allowed to advertise pharmaceutical drugs, which I think is mental. And pharmaceutical reps, so people who don't have a scientific background, who can't actually answer your questions, they're just quoting a fucking leaflet. They're good salespeople. They hire people with, you know, want to be crude with big jugs and a can-do attitude and a silver tongue to sell you a bunch of fucking pills that you don't actually need to prescribe. That's really sad. Like, that really upset me watching that. And Michael Keaton was brilliant in Dope Sick. Dope Sick is an excellent series. I changed my opinion of Michael Keaton after watching that because I thought he was excellent. And it turns out his nephew died of a heroin overdose, so God love him. It really hit home. It's a brilliant series if you haven't seen it. And check out Ron Piana. Rant over. See you later.